Okay, here's 11.4 study guide. Main idea of this lesson is about right triangles that are special because you don't need to use the Pythagorean theorem to find their side lengths, practicing visual cues. Label the angle measures in the 45, 45, 90 triangle, then label its side lengths, hypotenuse, leg, leg. The legs are the short ones, and they're opposite the 45-degree angle. And note that since these two are the same, these two legs are also the same. 3. Here's the 45, 45, 90 triangle theorem. If the length of one leg of the 45, 45, 90 is s, then the length of the other leg is s, and the length of the hypotenuse is the square root of 3 times s. Okay, so this is the square root of 2. So if that's 1 and that's 1, that's the square root of 2. So in order to remember this, for me, I like to know like why it works. And I think I can do that for you here. If I can remember how to get graph paper on here. Shoot, they changed this. Paper. There we go. Okay, this won't take long. This is why 45, 45, 90 works, okay? So we know that on the grid, this is 1, and that's 1. And we've probably learned by now, maybe in elementary school we thought this, but we've learned that that's not 1. We can't count diagonally 1. It's longer. So you will see that this forms a 90-degree angle, and that this is a hypotenuse. So if I wanted to solve for that c, I would go 1 squared plus 1 squared is c squared, and then the 1 squared is 1, so 1 squared plus 1 squared is 2, is equal to c squared. Then I would take the square root of both sides, and what do I get? I get the square root of 2, which is like 1.41, which is longer than 1. So that is the proof of why this is the square root of 2. So leg to leg is 1, leg to hypotenuse is the square root of 2. So 1, 1, square root of 2. 5. Okay. 45, 45, 90 triangles. Okay. A leg length s. Then the other leg is s. And this is the square root of 2. If the hypotenuse is h, then each leg length is the square root. I'll explain that to you in a minute. Okay. This is not helpful in my opinion. Okay. So 6, we got to do some practice. So we know 12 and 12. So since those are 12 and 12, I know that these are 45 and 45. And we know that the hypotenuse is one of the side lengths times the square root of 2. So all you need to do is take this and multiply it by the square root of 2. Now, here's what they were trying to explain up above where I said it wasn't any good. And here's the way you got to think about these. It's a little harder when you know the hypotenuse and you're missing one of these two equal sides. So I start to think it through, and I'm like, short leg times the square root of 2 is equal to the hypotenuse. That's the whole thing, right? So what's the short leg here? It's the letter s times the square root of 2. When I do that, what do I get? What's the hypotenuse? I get this. Now I just need to solve it for the side length. And I would divide both sides by the square root of 2. And the square root of 2's would cancel out. And I figure out that this is 6 and 6. 7. Okay, the hypotenuse is a 90-degree angle. The short leg is 30-degree angle. and the long leg is a 60-degree angle. Okay. So they should have given you more practice problems here because actually they can get trickier than that. So I'm not going to move on quite yet because that was like the easiest example ever, and then I'm sure they're going to give you harder ones on the quiz. So let's do another. Remember, if it's like this, the answer is 7 times the square root of 2. That's easy, okay? What's hard is when this is like 11. And that's x, and that's x. So I just remember, when I go x times the square root of 2, I get the hypotenuse. And then I divide both sides by the square root of 2. And you can get that as a decimal, but I'm willing to bet that they have in the answers, they have it with the square root still in there. And they probably don't have this, because it's incorrect to have a radical as a denominator. So here's what you do. You just got to memorize this, okay? This is not okay. Okay, you can't have that as a denominator. So to get rid of it, it's real easy. You just multiply the top and the bottom by that. And the answer is 11 times the square root of 2 over the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is 2. And this would have been the answer. See, a lot harder than this one they gave you here. But hopefully that made sense. Okay, we gotta label this here. So this is 90, this is 30, and this is 60. So I know that the 30 is across from the short leg, and the 60 is across from the longer leg. Okay, so this has a relationship too, just like the 45, 45, 90. And in this one, this is double. That's easy. Okay, you just take the short leg and double it. And then this one here, the long leg, is s times the square root of 3. Now, I could do a video on that too, but I'm wondering if we have time for it. Yeah, it's kind of cool. If you don't, I don't know, well, maybe watch it just because maybe you'll remember it better. Okay, this is neat if you can stay with it. So we have an equilateral triangle that I'm drawing here. And if it's equilateral, it's got to be that, right? Now I'm going to draw an altitude like this. And go like that. Oops, not whatever that is. Okay. All right, so what have I done? I've drawn an altitude. And what does an altitude do? Altitude makes a 90-degree angle here. Okay? And it also split this into 2 equal parts, making it 30 and 30. So what I have now is 2 30, 60, 90 triangles. So it also divided this side into 2 equal parts. Okay. So when I start thinking about this, I'm going to just say that my equilateral triangle here had sides of 1. So what would that make my 2 equal parts down here? It'd be like a half, right? And this would be 1/2. Okay, this is why the short leg from here to here is half of the hypotenuse in a 30, 60, 90. Now, if I want to get even trickier and wonder why this is times the square root of 3, I could go ahead and make that x. And I could use the Pythagorean theorem. I go 1/2 squared plus x squared is equal to 1 squared. And 1/2 squared is a 4th. Okay, because 1 squared is 1 and 2 squared is 4. And 1 squared is 1. Okay, now what I would do is I would subtract a 4th from each side. And I would get x squared is equal to 1 minus a 4th is 3/4. And then what I would do is I would take the square root of both sides, and that would give me x is equal to the square root of 3 over 2. Okay, square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 3 is ugly, so I left it the square root of 3. So this tells me that x is the square root of 3 divided by 2. So remember, how did we go? How did we get this? Right? We took the short leg and we multiplied it by the square root of 3. What's the short leg? It's a half. Okay? And what is 1/2 times the square root of 3? What's that? Okay? If you couldn't follow all that, you'll still be okay. Okay? So the length of the long leg, again, is the square root of 3 times the short leg. And then the length of the hypotenuse is just the short leg doubled. That one's easy. Okay, and 3 and 2. Okay, so let's do some of these. So this is easy. This is this doubled. Okay, and the long leg is times the square root of 3. And then here, you can see that's doubled there. And then this is just 10 times the square root of 3. Pretty easy. And that is your study guide. Let's do another one because they didn't give you any tough ones on the study guide here. Let's do one that would be a little trickier. So the easiest part is when you're given this, because then it's just this and this, okay? But of course it's not always going to be like that, right? It's also easy if you're given this, because then it's just this and this. So what would the hard combination be? This. Okay, so I start thinking, okay, well, how do I get the long leg? The long leg is the short leg times the square root of 3 equals the long leg. And then I divide both sides by the square root of 3. And then remember, I have to multiply that out. You might try that on your own, because you can't have that as a denominator. And that would be the short leg. Okay, so that would be that. Now to get the hypotenuse, I'd have to double that. So maybe I'll write that in over here. This is 8 times the square root of 3 over 3. Double it. That's all you have to do. So hopefully that helps you before you take the quiz.